This is Continuum Drag, a weekly podcast where we revisit sci-fi, fantasy, and just plain weird shows.
This week, Planet of the Apes, episodes 3 and 4.
Come on, Urko.
What you're doing is human labor. I'm not someone who does human labor.
Are you someone who enjoys suffocating?
I'll make an exception in this case.
Welcome to Continuum Drag, the podcast about the agricultural economy of chimp tenant farmers in relation to the greater ape society. I'm Luke, here with my co-host Jordan. What's real, Jordan?
I think that might be my favorite one yet. I would like for your openings to get longer and longer to the point where there's almost no podcast. It's just you riffing on what we're going to watch.
Riffing on some bad idea I have.
Yeah.
But this week we're actually going to be joined by something of a Planet of the Apes expert, Mr. Kaveh. How's it going, Kaveh?
It's going well. Thanks for having me. I'm really excited about this.
Are you the official president of the Planet of the Apes fan club?
The unofficial, unauthorized president of the unofficial, unauthorized fan club.
Toronto branch.
But you still give out buttons on the street.
Yeah, not by people who are willing participants. I just kind of force them to have a button.
You say, go ape.
Yeah.
Did you see that advertisement?
Yeah.
I've been looking at stuff, and before this aired, what was the station? I think it was NBC.
CBS.
CBS, excuse me.
20th Century Fox.
Was airing all the movies in a row, and they'd done really well. And so as an advertisement, they just had a big picture of one of the chimps, and it was, go ape.
Yeah,
that was
and
their ad.
It looked like a kind of, wasn't it like sort of an Uncle Sam,
Yeah.
We want you to go
Yeah,
ape?
exactly. But it was just go ape.
Yeah.
All right, well, Kaveh, since you are going to be our expert here,
Yeah.
I've only seen the Charlton Heston movie and then some of the newer ones, and Jordan's seen none of them.
Are you serious?
None.
So we don't know.
I've seen bits.
We don't know much about the
Oh
canon.
my God.
We don't know much about the canon of these movies or where this TV show falls inside of that canon.
Right.
But you do, I think.
Yes, and I'm bursting at the seams to tell you. Well, okay, so it goes back to obviously the original 68, and it's referred to as the APJ timeline, which is named after Arthur P. Jacobs, I think, and he was the executive producer on the films.
Hold on. Sounds about right.
Well, okay, so that's the original Charlton Heston 5 films that came out, and Charlton Heston's only in the first 2 of the 5. And then, of course, there's the Tim Burton, and then there's the 3 reboots.
Yeah.
But in between the Tim Burton one and the original 5 films, they made the TV series, which I had never seen before until this opportunity came. I guess I was waiting for the stars to align for such an opportunity to watch the TV series. But I'd read about it extensively.
Well, in the TV series, Dr. Zaius, or I guess he's now Council Ape Zaius,
I think
Counselor.
he kept his doctorate, though.
he kept his doctorate. Yeah, he's
Or
still.
hadn't gotten it yet.
But in the first episode, he mentions A, that he dealt with an astronaut before, and B, that he'd killed that astronaut.
Yeah.
Did he kill Charlton Heston's character?
No, so I think it's complete bullshit. From what I had read, it was the plan. They weren't expecting to get canceled 14 episodes into the series. And I think they interviews with the actors and writers were like, well, we were going to delve into that later on. All they know is that that's supposed to be a reference to the original script. So the original first draft of the first Planet of the Apes, the one you've seen with Charlton Heston.
Yep.
It was widely different from what was produced. So Rod Serling from Twilight Zone fame was hired to write the first 2 pilots for the show,
Which he did.
but they weren't.
But they didn't. These
didn't
aren't the
produce
produce them. Yeah.
So, but they kept the reference, and he was referencing his own scripts that hadn't really. So he was actually writing it around the time they were still making the films. Arthur P. Jones, formerly from the APJ canon fame that I mentioned earlier,
Of course.
had always wanted to make the TV series. So apparently, after every movie, was like, okay, now this summer we're making the TV series. And what would happen was the films just kept getting more and more successful to the point where like, okay, well, we're going to ride this momentum and just make the sequel because it was so successful. And then we'll make the TV series. And then Beneath the Planet of the Apes comes out, which is the second film. And APJ was like, okay, well, we got to make the third one. So they made Escape from the Planet of the Apes, which is fantastic. film.
Really?
It's my favorite one of. It's my second. The Charlton Heston is
the best one, right?
Is the best one.
Well,
the
it's the first one.
Second one's so campy. It takes place in the 70s. Cornelius and Zero, who are the two ape allies of Charlton Heston, travel back to the 1970s in modern day, and it's almost a reverse plot.
It's a reverse Planet of the Apes.
It's talking apes in modern day, which was modern 1970s America, and the humans are like the apes.
Right.
They take the satire and just flip it on its head, which just makes it what the point of the film is.
Right.
Right. And then there's a fourth one, which was sort of like the fourth and fifth of the original story are essentially what the modern remakes were with the James Franco, not the James Franco, but War for the Planet of the Apes and Rise of the Dawn of the Planet of the Apes. So all this is to say, there constantly was an attempt in the 70s to make a TV series, and they just delayed it until they completely ran out of steam with the movies. And as you can tell, I'm really excited to talk about this.
And that's the time you want to make a TV series, when you've exhausted all the ideas and you're like, you know what, well, I guess we'll just do the TV series. Now that's got legs.
Well, I was talking to you just before we started, and because one thing I want to know, I'm like, how does this fit into the Planet of the Apes canon? Because obviously with the 5 movies, I'm like, where does this fit? You mentioned that I think it's Beneath the Planet of the Apes, the movie before this, the last of the 5.
Yes.
You mentioned how that movie ends.
Yes. The complete destruction and annihilation of the world. Nuclear bombs go off and the world ends. And a narrator, in a very Twilight Zone-esque way, kind of says, and without any witnesses in the universe, a tiny blue planet fades into oblivion. And like the film goes to credits and everyone on Earth dies.
Oh,
All
I like
apes and
that.
humans. It's beautiful.
But where does this make the TV show fall?
Well, so I mean, ultimately, the answer is like it's nebulous because the TV series rather, is just a sort of side timeline that doesn't really exist, and they sort of grasped some ideas from the first film, but I think the creators just want you to say, don't think about it too much. Here's just a different series of events. One major difference is the humans in the films don't speak. I mean, the wild humans who are the slaves in this world are essentially what like modern apes are. Like they're just dumb and unable to use tools.
I read about it that the choice to have all the humans be able to speak in this was just because they thought, well, this doesn't have any legs. Like if these humans can't talk, what are the stories going to be?
Yeah.
So that was the reason they chose to make that decision.
That and to get guest stars too. They were hoping the show would go on for years, like a Star Trek sort of thing. And like, well, we can get
I don't know, man. What about all the hottest mime comedians at the time? They need work.
Yeah. The mime industry.
The mimes?
Yeah. If you had no speaking humans, cameos from all those famous mimes.
all the French film industry would go booming.
Oh, how good would that be? Jordan hates this idea.
Well, mimes.
Well, I mean, side note, I'm watching Leftovers now, and the Guilty Remnants, they don't speak, and they're a major part of the show. But anyways.
Haven't seen it.
Okay.
Jordan.
No, I haven't seen it either.
Leftovers? No.
We
are too busy watching.
We're too busy trying to catch up on the TV show from the 1970s.
All right. Well, we'll get into this in a second, but I do have one quick question for you before we start, Kaveh.
Yeah, answer away. I know everything.
Since you are the expert, I'm actually just curious, and this is not an accusation by any means, but what is it that you like about the Apes franchise so much that this is the life you've chosen for yourself?
We should mention he is wearing a full ape costume right now.
It's true. It's clearly homemade, though.
Sweating all over the table.
Yeah, I really didn't plan this out. There's no zipper in the back either. You just sort of have to like slide into it from the feet.
Hold on. You go upwards?
Up one leg and into it, and then sort of push your other leg.
Wow, I'd like to see that.
Yeah, no, you don't want to see it. So it looks like the birthing process, but in reverse.
But why is this a franchise you're so in love with?
I think the first film like really captured my the twist, Jordan, the twist ending of the first film.
It was Earth the whole time.
Yeah, and that's different from the book. The original book by Pierre Boul, B-O-U-L.
Sure.
Anyways,
we never pronounced anyone's name right.
French mime.
It actually ends some French mime. It actually ends closer to the Tim Burton version, so that like the novel sort of ends with like apes took over the past or something.
They go back in time.
And yeah, they do. And Rod Sterling was like, well, let's make a twist, and it's Earth, and that's brilliant for its time. And so that blew my mind. And then after that, it's like, if you've noticed in the first 2 episodes that you've already recorded your episode for, I think like Planet of the Apes has always had a very anti-war and anti-fighting sentiment, which I've always liked. I even think for the time, I mean, if the show was produced in the 70s, it was kind of, I guess, appeasing to, it was trying to get the hippie audience maybe to a certain degree. It was like really advocating peace. And I think they're using the allegory of the future with these apes, and I mean, they're talking about race relations and war and intergovernmental policies and political science and other smart. So I've always liked that. I just think it's such an endearing, hopeful sentiment it's trying to reach out to the audience.
Very cool. I mean, I think that definitely is the sense of this TV show. That's for sure.
And you like monkeys?
There's monkeys.
Who doesn't like monkeys?
Yeah. There's no Are there actual monkeys though? No, because they even make a point. It's just chimpanzees, gorillas, and is there a third one?
chimps, gorillas. That's all we've
Well,
seen.
no, there's what Dr. Zaya says, which is
orangutan?
I think he's supposed to be an orangutan.
Right.
And
They all get those horrible haircuts.
they get the awful
Yeah, like,
haircuts.
all right, orangutan, come here.
Yeah.
Come get the bull and cut that straight across those bangs.
Yeah. But he doesn't look like an orangutan. He's just sort of a blonde chimpanzee, sort of. He doesn't look that different.
He looks more like a chimp to me. But I think you're right. I think he was maybe meant to be an orangutan.
Yeah, they're supposed to be a different species.
What am I? A zoologist? I don't know. All right. No one liked that either.
I was just thinking of something. I couldn't think of anything.
All right. Let's get into the first episode then. Here's the IMDb summary for episode 3, The Trap. When they are buried alive underground in an ancient San Francisco subway station during an earthquake, Burke and General Urko are forced to work together. Above ground, Galen and Verdun try to figure out a way to help Burke with the assistance of several guerrilla soldiers. That summary was courtesy of Ape Freak.
Kaveh? Kaveh, was that
Wasn't
you?
me. I'm actually upset there's another one out there. Ape Freak what? Was there a number attached
No
to it?
number. He got number
It was
one.
the first one.
Yeah. You're going to get Ape Freak 69, though.
I tried. I was like 169. There's a lot of us. We are
Yeah.
many.
Ooh. So be careful. They're coming for us. Essentially, the episode starts off sort of with Urko on patrol for the fugitives, which I think is kind of be a theme of these episodes. Is like, where do we start? Urko's looking for some fugitives.
And let me say, it starts in a broken city, and I love the look of the city, and I can go into it because I researched about the city because I was obsessed with where they got this set, because it's clearly a set. Like, it's clearly a backlot, a huge set. So I don't know how deep you want to get into that, but...
Well, we can definitely get into it. Like, yeah, it sort of teases what will be a main setting for it. Maybe we'll come back to it when we get to the setting, but it's sort of a real huge backlot set of looks like earthquake ravaged city, basically. Essentially, though, what's happening is Urko has a couple soldiers and one soldier who gets a name this time. Did you catch the soldier's name?
The only one I ever remember is Jason, because that's my favorite ape name.
I didn't even catch that.
That was
in one of the first episodes. They all have like fun names, like really kind of exotic names.
Yeah, yeah.
And then one's Jason. I just love it. Jason the ape.
This one, his sort of like right-hand man in this episode was named Mimo.
Oh, yeah. Was he the one that had the coconut reflector?
Well, Mimo had a vest on with an M drawn in the middle of the vest.
Right, yeah.
So you could tell who Mimo was.
Like a military vest? Like something
No,
for...
more like a biker vest.
Oh, okay. It's like a neat little vest. Like it was a fashion statement.
And it didn't look like the M was like stitched in there. Like someone had taken a can of paint and just like used a house brush and like painted an M on the front of it. It was I love
Classic
it so
Mimo.
much.
Right? Yeah. It's Mimo for you.
Essentially, we get the sense that Urko's been hot in the trail of our astronaut escapees and Galen, of course. I think last time I referred to them by their first names, but I'm realizing the further we get into this show, they seem to like to refer to them on the screen by their last name. So I'm gonna I'm gonna stop calling them Pete and Alan and start calling them Burke and Verdun.
Yeah, I kind of like Pete and Alan, though.
I think it's better too, but everyone on the show has completely given up on calling them by their first
Right.
names.
Also, I don't know if you noticed that, Kaveh, but they take their shirts off a lot.
Oh, yeah. I've
I
noticed.
think they might do it in every single episode.
Have they taken off their shirts in the second episode?
Maybe it was my dreams.
Yeah. Well, no. I believe you. if
I'm
you
trying to
told me
think. I mean, he did get in that cage match.
Yeah, I think he takes his shirt
It
off.
would make sense to take your shirt off if you were in a cage match. But I don't remember it specifically. Definitely the dad did.
Yeah, the dad did.
He was so beefy. Basically, Burke and Verdun Galen are just 2 steps ahead of them. There's this whole opening is a little weird. Like they come up with a plan to buy themselves some time where they attack some gorilla who's manning this strange signal outpost.
And what is the classic move that Pete uses to knock the guy out?
He calls him over and says, "I want to show. There's something I need to show you." Right?
Well,
Or did-
Galen distracts him by doing that.
Oh,
But,
yeah, I get it. What did the other two do?
but I believe Pete does a double-footed kick to his
It's
chest.
a drop kick. Every fight, he starts with a drop kick.
Yeah,
it's
I mean,
his opening move.
I remember when he did that to the father-son gladiator. He did that. I
He
didn't
did it
notice
again.
he did it this
He
time.
did it again
too.
to the ape.
That's
I think
his move.
That's his opening.
It was really good too. I caught it because it's a running double jump. Like, he just jumps both legs forward into the smash.
As everyone knows, you can't defend against that.
Well, no, and as everyone knows, the best way to attack anyone is hit them with like somewhere between your knees and shins while you're flying through the air.
Yeah.
I mean, they don't come back from that.
No, neither do you.
It's an act of dominance. Essentially, they take I guess the apes. Maybe this is from the movies, Kaveh. The apes have giant reflective circles they use to like send each other flat, like Morse code, but via like flashes.
Yeah, I had never seen that before in any other movie.
I thought it was good though.
It's an
I mean,
interesting
they're
idea,
really pushing the idea that I don't know if agrarian society is the right word, but that they're technology is maybe not up to snuff.
Yeah. I wanted to know if there were a bunch of those like across the country, and they just like sent like, what is it called? Like when you tap.
Morse code,
No,
reflector code.
reflector code. No, I'm thinking of like back in the Old West when you send your little tappy message to each
Oh,
other.
like the wire.
The
You
wire.
send it over
You
the
send it
wire.
over the wire. It was like
Right.
their version of the
Yeah.
wire. It was their version of the wire set in
Yeah.
Baltimore.
I mean, there's something funny like to know canonically about this TV series is when they edited them. They edited episodes into feature length.
That's right, yeah.
TV movies, and so they added footage. They shot footage years later.
Oh, really? So they took these TV shows and then turned them into additional films?
Yeah,
Yeah,
so
they aired them on TV.
They'd air them on TV like 5 years later. 2 episodes paired together to make one feature, and they added new scenes with Galen in the future, an aged Galen.
Oh, telling stories?
telling stories to the
Oh,
audience.
what a terrible idea.
And it was awful, but it was Roddy McDowell again, so it was good they got him again. He
I
loved
really-
playing these monkeys.
I really want to see these bookends.
Yeah, it's great. You can see there's a great link for them.
Also, from what I've read, I think he's the only one who enjoyed it because everything I read was everyone hated being a monkey or an ape.
Yeah, the makeup was impossible to like.
And it was like apparently 100 degrees every day. Remember we mentioned how they were always seemed like they're sweating? Apparently
yeah.
it is unbelievably hot.
Well, the human characters are sweating uncontrollably. I can't imagine what was going on in those suits.
one actor in the monkey suit had run into a beehive in the middle of shooting and had to jump off his horse and like get the bees out of his mask. Which I can't picture a more like suffering process. But anyways, future Galen is shown around modern technology. So like somewhere in that timeline, they've developed like computers and electricity.
Oh,
and,
crazy.
And like telephones, and he's sitting at a desk. And
He's
so-
sitting at a desk.
He's sitting at like a modern desk.
He turns around and he's like, "Oh, I didn't see you come in."
Yeah. He actually does say that the first time in the camera. He's like, "Oh, you scared me. Oh, you're here to hear another tale of my adventures with Verdun."
Did you notice how ergonomic my desk is? It's very modern.
Yeah. But
No,
so-
that's interesting. So there was like an idea that this is in the far past on the ape world.
Yeah, they're at their precipice of developing all this technology.
Interesting.
But until then, they're using the Morse code, the sunlight.
Sunlight. Essentially, what they do is they knock this guy out, and then they use the flashing signal thing to basically send a fake message saying, "Hey, I saw them. They're going south," and they're like, "This will buy us some extra time. It'll send Urko on the wrong path." And they head into this town called Noumea, where
Numea, something like that.
Noumea, where they. Which is, I guess, famous for harboring fugitives.
That's what it's known for.
I like that. They were like, we just know that. I'm like,
Yeah.
oh, that's a weird thing to be known for.
There's like the Miller family takes them in, and like it's a very short scene where they're like, "Hey, we'll look after you." And then the daughter comes to them and she's like, "Hey, I was just rooting around in the old broken down city. Check out these computer parts I found."
Yeah.
Well, she made a necklace out of wires, which
And
is
she-
a terrible necklace, by the
It
way.
was an awful necklace. I also thought the father was off the get-go just very suspicious.
Because he was balding, but he had one long
one-
strand of hair that
one
was
strand-
hanging down his face.
Yeah, and just aggressively comforting in a weird way. Just like,
Yeah.
you come into my house and I will help you.
And he's like, you guys want a massage, right? And like,
Yeah.
what's your feelings on wrestling?
Yeah, I was very suspicious of Murray off the back. It was also called The Trap, the episode. So I
Right.
was like, this guy's gonna trap
It did
them.
set up some sort of trap. But yeah, they have this exchange, and Verdun, he's got that magnetic disc. That's how he wants to get home. So he's like, "Hey, you guys, we got to head to that city. We got to find some computer parts. We got to read this magnetic disc, and I don't know, go back in time somehow." And of course, Pete Burke, always the naysayer, is just like,
Yeah, he is.
let's not do that.
No, you didn't want.
Galen ends up being the tiebreaker. He's like, "Oh, let's go check it out, you guys. It could be fun." And I honestly thought they'd spend more time in this city, but they're in that house for less than 5 minutes. I'm like, "Yeah, let's get out of here. Let's go to that city we just heard about." And as soon as they leave, the ape or the gorillas report back to Urko. It's like, "Hey, we got a signal they went south." And Urko's like, I don't buy it. Let's go check out where this came from. Like, he immediately suspicious of the signal. Gets there. The guy's not there. He's like, "Well, all right. Obviously, they're trying to trick us. Where would they go? I heard there's a city here that loves to harbor." Like, he is such a good scout. Like, he's so
Yeah.
good at his job.
Yeah.
Like, they don't buy themselves any extra time. He's on them immediately. And then he shows up in town and like confronts the Millers. And he's like, "Did you see them?" They're like, "No, never." And it's like, "Well, where'd they go?" He's like, "Well, we don't know. We never like we didn't see them." Like, "Are you sure?" He's like, "Yeah, they went south."
Yeah, it's straight out of Inglourious Bastards. He becomes like Hans Landa in that moment. It's just like, I know you're harboring fugitives. You know,
That's true. That's
it's really intimidating.
That's where that
actually.
came from. Right?
Yeah.
Well, he also, I wrote the one down. He grabs the guy and goes, lies, nothing but lies.
Yeah, it was a good moment.
Yeah, it's good.
It was really good. And even when they leave, like they finally like get them to confess to, yes, the fugitives were here, but they went in the like they lie and say they went south too. And as they walk out, Urko's like, "All right, we're going to the city," and his henchman's like, "What? Why?" He's just like, Oh, because humans, all they do is lie.
I always find a human is lying. That
Yeah.
was a direct quote.
He's so funny. You can't trust them. They're just going to lie to you constantly.
Why ask them anything if you always find they're lying?
Just do the opposite of whatever they say. I mean,
And he was right.
it was a lot of setup
Yeah,
to
he
get
was
them to that city, but there were some great moments. Like Urko was amazing in it, just like throwing his weight around, just like calling humans liars.
Yeah.
A lot of good character development for him.
Yeah, he's actually got quite a bit in this episode and sort of the next. Like you kind of see like a lot of the villains have good character development. Is Mimo, I mean, we'll get there, but is Mimo the one who makes the promise?
Mimo makes a promise at the end of this episode.
Yeah, okay. Like that's a good turn.
Yeah, again, that's classic Mimo.
Classic Mimo in his vest.
So I was wearing that vest. But yeah, this longish setup kind of finally gets us to this wrecked city, which is San Francisco from the past.
Mm-hmm.
What we kind of have heard while they're in the town is 3 days ago, there's like a huge earthquake. And since then, there's just been these small aftershocks. We've been seeing the camera shake occasionally, and we're like, whoa, everyone's shaking in your place. There's an earthquake happening. But they're sort of there poking around, trying to hope they can find some computer parts. But since Urko's so on top of it, he's like already at the city. He's like, all right, let's ambush these guys. Let's get them. And at first I thought this was going to be the trap. I'm like, all right, they're going to ambush them and get them. This is the trap. But Galen smells them coming.
Yeah. And then it becomes a lot of like peekaboo in and out of buildings for like five or 10 minutes. Didn't it seem like that went on a little while? They're like, oh, we're over here. No, down there, here. And you know Pete's gonna get caught because this, by the way, is 3 for 3. 3 episodes where Pete gets
caught.
He gets caught. That's his thing. He's a pessimist, and he gets caught by apes.
Yeah, I guess that's true.
Yeah.
Well, they both get caught in the first two.
Yeah, but I think he's going for the record.
Right. Yeah. He's 3 for 2. He's 3 for 3. Well, Verdun is 2
2
for
for 3.
3.
Yeah.
Well, he's pulling out ahead in our race to ape capture.
Yeah, an ape capture. Yeah.
One thing I was wondering about Galen's ability to hear the horses. Is he hearing them or sensing them or smelling them?
It looked to me like he was sniffing the air and he was like, scatter. He like yelled scatter and they all like ran into the buildings.
Right. And he's done this several times now, which I like because I kind of feel like I wouldn't mind them exploring a little bit more about how they differ. Like Galen sort of has this super sensitive hearing or ability to sense them coming. I like that element, you know?
I honestly could use a little more Galen backstory because right now he's been pretty like he doesn't have a lot going on.
Well, I think they've probably set up as much as they're going to in the first episode, and I don't think you're gonna have much more after this. Maybe there'll be an episode where like I don't know he tries to fall in love or something, but you're not gonna learn much.
But Roddy McDowell's like giving his all. I want
he is.
more.
He'll do anything to be in another monkey suit. He just loves it so much.
But yeah, as we said, Pete once more gets captured. Urko gets a lasso around him from horseback and starts reeling him in when another aftershock happens. And the street opens up. Pete falls in. Urko's pulled in after him. And then a huge concrete wall falls on top of the hole. They would be trapped down there if it weren't for the lucky happenstance that Galen happened to see it all happen.
Yeah. And I love the moment. I was so excited. It was like, oh, it's going to be like a bottle episode where they're going to have to learn to work together, which is what the episode is.
Yeah, I mean, it's a classic enemy mind or with a Darmok from TNG.
Mm-hmm.
You got to work with your enemy if you're going to survive. I will say, a bit of a rush for episode 3 to be this plot line, but that's fine.
Yeah.
I thought the same thing.
Like, wow, you guys are really spinning through these ideas.
Let me ask you something about. So they fall into what we find is it's a subway, or
Yeah,
it used to be an old subway.
It's part of the BART system, the Bay Area Rapid Transit.
But here's what was weird about it, and maybe this is just unfair to the set design, but they're in what looks like to be either like a waiting area for the tracks, and I noticed they have like the tunnel where the
train's coming
out, but there's no tracks in front of it. Like it looks like it just comes into the lobby. You know what I mean? It didn't look like it was an actual subway station, and maybe that's just not fair for what they were able to put together. But I was like, there was no like level down where the tracks were.
The weird thing for me is, and we'll probably get to this because there was a lot of weird things about the subway station. Everything from like the history didn't sound like it was on our regular timeline. Did you notice at one point? I think they mentioned that the subway runs on nuclear power.
They did mention that.
Yes. But this show takes place in what year is it, Luke? Is it 1980? Well, like what? No, the year they left.
They left in 1985. They're in 3080 something, and we at least know, according to that book they found in the first episode, that humanity was around till at least 2500.
Right.
So there's at least 500 years history after they go forward in time.
But that subway didn't look like it was from
No.
It looked like it was supposed to be from when the same time period they left. I mean, that makes it weird because why would it still be there? But he seems to know. Pete knows a lot about
Pete knows
it, and
everything about
because
it.
I think it's supposed to be like from the 70s,
That was
80s.
that was the biggest problem I think I had with it too. Is I'm like, Pete knows everything about all the tech and all the advertisements on the subway.
Meal in a pill, disposable clothes, instant organ replacement.
Yeah.
There was an ad for that in the
that
subway.
was come on, that's so 80s.
An electronic neurological monitor, which the tagline on the poster was instant mental stability.
That's pretty good.
Yeah, it's
the
great.
the art team had fun with that.
Yeah.
I mean, and all the advertisements look like they're like illustrations from 1950, which I was just like, oh, things just got real retro in the future. This is what they have. But I have that same question. I'm like, you're from the past, and we know humanity went on for 500 years. Like, how do you recognize everything? So maybe they're saying this subway station got closed down in 1985.
I think that's what we're supposed to believe.
Before, like, they're like, we don't need the subway anymore. Just close it as is. And then, like, 2,000 years later, he stumbles into it. He's like, hey, I remember all of this stuff.
Yeah.
But Pete wouldn't have memories of.
Well, that's what I'm saying is in 1985, when he left Earth,
That's what
Right.
the subway was like.
they were like, the day he left, they're like, close this subway station. Now we don't need it. Just lock it
Pete's
up.
gone, guys.
Leave,
Close it down.
leave everything as it is, and let's not touch it forever.
Right.
And then so when he falls into it, 2000, because that's what I was just like. I'm like, there's 500 years of human history. How do you know everything that's in the subway station?
Well, I'll tell you what. It's good they closed it up because the batteries still work on the solar powered.
Oh, they have
lights.
solar lights. They're still working.
Pretty
Yeah,
good.
that's
That's some pretty
great.
good technology.
Yeah.
But essentially, yeah, this is kind of what happens is Pete's down in the subway with Urko, and they're running out of air. They find out pretty quickly. So Pete's kind of trying to convince Urko, hey, we need to work together. He's like, starts showing him around. He's like, you can trust me. Like, you can work with me. This place is like my place. Like, this is from my world. I start showing him like, here's a nuclear head train. Here's some advertisements. Here's a satellite phone. And he's going on. And I really like this scenes with Urko because like Pete will be pointing to me. He's just like, this is from my world. And like Urkel will get mad. He's like, it's my, like, we're here too. What do you mean your world?
Your world.
Well, yeah, that was probably the most interesting thing of the episode was Urko's inability to wrap his mind around the idea that the humans at one point were the dominant species.
Well,
and he can't give it up. And so, kind of spoiling what happened, the only way he can even agree to work with him is to have Pete eventually go, I lied. This is all technology from the past, but it's ape technology. So I'm just, I'm a classic human. And so that's the only way they'll get along.
That's kind of what's happening is because Pete's pushing this so hard and it's so outside of Urko's like worldview. Like the more Pete pushes, the more incensed and insane Urko gets. Like there's some great, I wrote down some more lines because I just love them so much. Like he's showing him all these advertisements like for food in a pill or clothes that melt off your body when you wash them. Did you
Was that
catch that one?
No, I didn't get
There
that
was
one.
disposable clothes.
Disposable clothes, yeah.
You wear them and then wash them off in the shower.
Oh, I thought you throw them in the sink, but that makes
Oh,
more
maybe
sense.
not. I don't know.
He said they wash down the drain.
What a time saver, huh? You just
Yeah.
hold on. You wear so at the end of the day you take a shower with your work clothes, not you wash off your pajamas before you put on your clothes.
Oh, I don't know.
Or both?
Either way, I guess you could do both.
I mean, yeah, it's disposable.
And they're
clothes.
disposable. Who cares, right?
cares?
I bring it up again because as he's Pete's getting really pushy about this because he's trying to convince him, humans, you can trust me, we can work together because I know this stuff. And Urko's just like, no, I don't want to believe this. You're making me insane. Stop saying these things. And there's like, when he's showing the advertisements, he's like, Urko, don't you remember this product? And Urko's like, how would I remember that? I wasn't
Yeah,
there. Like,
yeah.
Like it was a hilarious line. I'm like, because I was like, Pete, what are you doing? How would he remember
Yeah.
these products? He's an ape from the future.
Yeah, from like 3,000 years in the future. Yeah, he doesn't remember.
But yeah, it drives Urko insane. He starts like choking Pete to death, and that's when Pete's just like, I lied. Apes made all of this.
Yeah.
I lied.
And it's totally reasonable on Urko, right? Yeah,
Yeah.
on his part, because it's like it's the equivalent of like a dog from 1000 BC coming to us and saying, "Remember, like edible hats? Like how much would you be? You'd want some instant mental stability at that point."
Hold on. The dog from the past they had edible hats?
Yeah, and like he's trying to convince you that you're crazy because
man.
dogs once took over.
Because he's talking. He's A, talking. B, he wants you to talk about disposable edible hats.
Like, you
And
can relate to
I
Urko.
start choking him. I'm like, there's no way I can believe you. Lies, nothing but lies.
So you have to have empathy for. You have to have sympathy for
For
Urko.
poor Urko.
Also, that's a great show, by the way.
Yeah.
The talking dog that
Spin
always
off.
eating hats
The hat eating talk dog.
from the past.
Yeah.
but Now that they've kind of like agreed to work together, we kind of pop back up topside where Galen and Verdun are trying to figure out a way to save Pete. And ultimately there's some back and forth, but they essentially manage to talk to the gorillas who are searching for Urko and kind of, particularly with Mimo, sort of convince them to get into a tenuous truce to save both of them.
Yeah.
You basically make Urko promise, hey, you help us, or Mimo, they help Mimo promise, like, we'll help you get them out of there, but you'll let us go. Like, it's kind of a tenuous thing, but Mimo kind of like, it's like a deal's a deal, so I'll do this. And it's kind of interesting. They do a bit of like, to prove that Urko's down there, they do a bit of like Morse code by tapping on a piece of metal.
Yeah, I liked it.
Like, because apes don't know Morse code, so their minds are blown when Burke taps back up and he's like, Urko's wife's name is Elta. And everyone's like, whoa.
Yeah, like a magic trick. What I liked about Mimo was that it's he wasn't instantly just gonna buy everything, right? In that moment, he's like, okay, like show me more. Is there something believable? They're not rushing the character motivations.
The writing is pretty good. They give you enough build up and enough, like they allow the character to like be won over.
Yeah.
And even I was kind of interested in this is they're gonna do it because Verdun's like, I'll build a fulcrum that will like tie the horses to, and it'll help us like leverage up the piece of cement. But are the apes that technologically challenged?
Well, that's something that
they don't know how it fully works?
they kind of hint at in this episode and really
Fourth
push
one,
in the
yeah.
next one,
Pulley
which
system.
is, and I don't know how I feel about it, but they're sort of really like, again, there's this agrarian society, but they're really pushing the idea that they're kind of blown away by technology
basic
and that
physics.
Yeah, and that the apes are actually kind of stupid, which I don't think we've given that indication before, but they're sort of pushing that now.
Yeah, like
Am I wrong?
In the fourth episode, he's one of them is Burke is convincing them like the benefit of having stronger fences.
Right, that's what I mean. It's like
It seems, yeah, it does. The first two episodes were like their technology was not up to something. Like it was just like they were in like a Middle Ages kind of thing. But now they're kind of positing it's like they can't even figure out like basic ideas.
But it was actually wasn't that. What they sort of posited was that they didn't want technology because the technology that humans had brought destruction. Remember, there wasn't a negative connotation. They were alluding that they were going for some sort of utopian society where they were living off the land and they didn't need technology. And now they're sort of implying a couple episodes in that they're kind of stupid. And I thought that was a weird twist.
Maybe no. I wonder if maybe that is kind of the idea is the council's trying to suppress sort of human concepts or ideas. And maybe they're doing it too broadly. So like the people like these just guerrilla soldiers and these farmers that we'll see next episode, they're just like not given the opportunity for even basic knowledge that maybe does exist, but they're like, because they're afraid of human technology so much, it's being suppressed. Maybe I'm looking too much into it.
Well, yeah, it's strange because it's hard. Like if they're going to agree that the humans weren't superior and they didn't exist in the land, then they can't. They either believe that the humans were, they use technology to the point where they wipe themselves out, but then they have to also agree to the fact that they were
technologically superior.
Yeah. And it's one or the other. And I think maybe there's just the faction of those who are just like the farmers will.
Or maybe the writers are just trying to have it both ways.
Yeah. Have
Maybe.
the cake and eat it too.
Yeah, it's hard to say. Like I would need to see more of that high council because it definitely seemed like obviously Dr. Zaius was more than aware of humans' abilities.
Counselor Zaius.
But was actively trying to suppress it with the council. So, I mean, maybe we'll find out more in future episodes.
I don't want to see more of the council.
Oh no, that's not your
Boring.
favorite. No, I love all that talking about judging things.
You just want to see these ape bureaucrats at work?
Yeah,
just stamping forms.
That was I can see some stamping forms, man. Oh man.
Rod Serling's pilot was largely like a trial of the first episode. It was a lot like the first movie where they're trying to like decide what to do with the civilians.
Oh, that's very funny because that one scene did seem rushed, but did seem like a huge turning point in it. Anyway. So they're going to build this fulcrum to lift this thing and get Burke and Urko out, lift this cement thing off of the whole thing. I can't have words anymore. Meanwhile, underground, Burke and Urko are setting about to build a little ladder, despite the fact that Urko says physical labor is human work. So he's going to do it anyway, just for this one time.
He just wanted to get that dig in right before he starts helping.
Like,
you do know this is beneath me, right?
This is human work.
Yeah.
It's at this point we kind of get the big twist of the episode, or like the big turn in that, well, Urko's moving across some like girders to like help build this ladder. He stumbles across one last ad that Burke was hoping he wouldn't notice. an ad for the San Francisco Zoo featuring a gorilla in a cage.
I like though in this universe in 1980 or whenever this subway was left, they have pills that are a meal supplement. Apparently, clothes you can wash off in the shower, but zoos are still a thing.
Yeah, we still got to capture animals and put them in cages
Yeah.
for our amusement.
Yeah.
What will we do with our time? We've got all this extra time that we don't need to eat or put on clothes.
Yeah, there you go.
We need to put more animals in cages.
You would have more time for the zoo. You're right.
Imagine how more often you go to the zoo if you didn't have to like put on that shirt.
Yeah.
You could put the animals in costumes and not worry about have to take them off.
Just
You
wash
put
it right
them-
off.
Yeah,
Just,
wash
Like
them right
close
off.
them down.
A
You
giraffe
laugh and laugh at the animal in the clothing.
a giraffe in a tuxedo and then just spray it off.
Yeah. Tuxedo? No tuxedo. Tuxedo? No
There you
tuxedo.
go.
Sounds great. I'm there. 1985 sounds wonderful. But yeah, this ad that Urkel comes across, this is basically like the tipping point for him. Like he sees this and the trouble he was having of his worldview with what Pete was trying to tell him, or Burke was trying to tell him, completely collapses here because it's true. And he has to accept, like he's seeing it. He like pulls the poster off the wall and like shoves it into his jacket and then
It's a powerful scene.
he sees a shiv on the floor and he picks it up and he like puts in his thing and he goes up to Pete, and at that moment the fulcrum's working, like they're lifting the lid off of the hole and they're like, we're gonna throw a rope down and pull you up, and Urko's just like, I can't let you leave. You've seen this.
Yeah.
You know humans are better than us. And like he's just like, I've got to kill you now. And he pulls out his shiv and he goes to stab him, but what does old Burke do?
Well, he very conveniently has the what do you call it? The
Solar light.
light in his hand, and when he goes to stab it, he stabs the light in classic electrocution.
I thought he was gonna die, but he's just knocked. Urko's just knocked out. I was
Well,
like,
I mean,
whoa, you killed Urko.
He probably has some very serious damage inside of him.
Yes, I mean he did just electrocute himself.
Yeah.
And then he also, like, when they get back up on land, he faints again. I thought he was going to die that time. The second time he had his final words about kill them.
Yeah, he had a bad time of it.
Yeah.
Like kind of once he's electrocuted, Pete like ties him to the rope and they pull him out, and then Pete Burke climbs out of the hole too, and they have this moment where Mimo's like, all right, well, I guess a deal's a deal. You should go. And like you said, Urko kind of comes to for a second. He's like, kill them. You must kill them. The soldiers are all like, well, he said to kill them, so we got to do it. And Mimo kind of has to like play some games and like, you take old Urko, you girls take Urko to the hospital because he's badly injured. And I promise as soon as you leave, I will execute the 3 prisoners. And we kind of get a scene where they go off and he's like, we made a deal, so I'm not going to kill you. I'm just going to fire 3 shots in the air and they'll think you're dead, which is fine. Like a perfectly fine end to the episode where he keeps his promise. But I think where they kind of went the extra mile was after Burke, Verdun, and Galen run off and the gorillas have taken Urko away. Mimo looks down and he finds a folded up piece of paper, which is the poster from the subway station. And he actually opens it up and we get this like surprisingly dramatic scene.
Yeah, no, it was really it was powerful for a second time, and also it kind of maybe helps make clear why in the very next episode, like they're searching for them again, because I thought, does Mimo just go back and tell Urko that he killed them? Wouldn't that be the end of their chase?
I
at that
unfortunately, I think the reason they're back to searching for the next episode is that's just what the show's going to be now.
Yeah, of course.
It doesn't matter; it just resets.
Well, that's and with modern like television, you'd always have to have a scene explaining why they're searching, but back then it's just like episodic.
It's a
serialized.
fugitive thing. But yeah, I did like. You should see Mimo open it up, and he's looking at it, and you get a like for a man in a mask, you get an awful lot of emotiveness of him, like understanding what he's looking at, and then what that means about everything he's ever been taught, and then him just becoming furious and like tearing it up into a million little pieces, having just let them go. It was like I was blown away by how much this actor could get out of like a silent shot, one shot in an ape suit where he's supposed to like have his entire world fall apart.
Yeah, it was good.
Yeah, he regrets his decision at that point too, because he's like, "What have I unleashed? Like that might just be.
Yeah.
Have I just by my decision in this moment been the beginning of the end of our civilization?"
I thought it was interesting too because he's basically seen them build the fulcrum. Like he's seen like, oh, this guy is smarter than he should be.
Yeah.
And so by finding this, it was kind of like, I don't know. It was a very interesting way. I think we've said this a few times, but like, it's not a perfectly written show, but like, man, oh man, they land some like really good beats when they do it and they work.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
And can I mention one thing? The disc that they mentioned at the beginning, that's been the sort of I don't even call it, but the little thing they've been looking for in every episode.
The MacGuffin.
Yeah, little MacGuffin, if you were. Yeah. Apparently, after this episode, they lost the prop. They lost the prop, and it will never be mentioned again in the series. And I don't know if you read it, but I was
Oh,
doing
I
some
read
research,
it.
and it basically were like at one point they're like we can't find it, and then they went, don't worry about it, we're just going in a slightly different direction, so you're never going to worry about it again. So that's it for the disc.
You don't even see the disc in this episode. What a waste.
No, I think it may have already been lost.
Yeah, it was lost by episode 3 when they were in production.
They lost it. They actually did lose it when he had that fight with them. And they dropped it on the
Yeah,
ground.
that was what it was,
Whoa,
yeah.
we lost it for real. Oh, that's very funny. Before we move on, just because it was teased earlier, but neither of you actually finished up with the story. So this giant destroyed city set, which is like got to be like 3 square blocks of like back slot of a earthquake like town. Where is like I didn't look very hard, but what is this place?
So it's so they were trying to save money at this point, and they found out that the backlot of MGM was tearing down their cityscape, which had been used in a bunch of different movies. So it's New York was what the movie was, what the cityscape was supposed to be, and that's actually just the state that it was in. It was literally getting torn down, and all that rubble is the actual rubble. So they just were like, all right, don't need to set deck. Boom, let's just shoot there, and that's what happened.
That's amazing. I mean, it's so funny because you mentioned how the subway stations maybe not as well put together as it could be. It is probably more in sharp relief because that city looks so good.
Well, that's the thing. The city looks great, and then you go down and you go, oh yeah, they spent $10 on the subway set, which is not a
I
lot.
thought the subway still looked pretty good. I mean,
Did you?
For its time?
I didn't. Yeah, I didn't.
I
think it
like
was-
the one little rebar beam sticking out when he was like, look at that, that's interesting. I was like, oh, that's gonna be a plot point for
Yeah.
later. Why is that beam sticking out like that?
I mean, I didn't think it looked awful, but it definitely like the production value. The differential was like.
Well, they knew too because they were doing long shots of the city and stuff. And you're like, oh, they're not faking that.
But for me, in contrast to scenes when they're out in the woods and they're sort of like in the Californian, like those to me seem for some reason like the cheapest moments because it just literally seems like they put costumes on guys and put them in the middle of like the Californian sun, like somewhere in the woods. Yeah, I don't know why it just looks. And then the subway, in contrast to that, it's just barren landscape looks cool.
I don't disagree. I mean, I was really pleased when they kind of went to an urban setting this episode. I'm like, oh, I'm glad we're not going to be just running around in the forest again.
But don't worry, we're going back to the same stupid little town in the next.
Yeah,
the next
don't worry.
episode.
Well, let's get into it now. I've taken enough time here in the trap, so let's move on to the summary for episode 4, The Good Seeds.
I don't know. That's funny.
I thought it was a really weird title, actually.
Well,
Like,
it's
it
just they
didn't fit.
picked the stupidest part of the episode. Who cares about the seeds?
So I've had to edit this summary for length, which take a drink, everybody. This is a new thing, by the way. We have a drinking game now.
You've done this. Wait! The cow is not dead. You can't claim a life yet.
Look, Arthur, the cow doesn't need to die. I can help. The calf has got to be turned around.
Oh, no. You've worked your last trick here. When she dies, you die.
When Galen hurts his leg and can't travel, Verdun and Burke seek refuge in a farm till their friend recovers. That was courtesy of Dinky 4 of Minneapolis.
What was his name?
Dinky 4 of Minneapolis.
Question: Is it? I know Dinky's spelled, and I love it. Is 4 FORE or FOUR, or is it the number 4?
It's the number, and it's me.
It is
That one actually is me.
That is you. that is actually Kaveh. Dinky 1 through 3 as your forebearers
Dinky
Yeah.
4
of Minneapolis.
of Minneapolis.
Yeah.
That's great. I love that show. Remember that show? Dinky 4 of Minneapolis?
That'd be a good 1970s
Yeah, sitcom,
sci-fi show. This one, again, we start off, as we mentioned in the first episode, they're once again 2 steps ahead of Urko's gorillas chasing him down. And this time the big problem seems to be that Galen's a little slow.
But the scene of him falling, which is going to happen. So what they basically are like, oh, we're really being held up by Galen, which is a weird little plot thing. And then for some reason he like gets an energy drink or something. He's like, guys, watch this. And he like goes ahead and jumps right. And it's the funniest falling down the side of a hill ever. I watched it several times.
It is quite the stunt. It's like a pratfall. He
Yeah.
like clearly pretends to slip and then rolls down a hill.
Well, I thought it looked like it looked like he was pretending to slip and then really fell, and then because he hit something on his way down too, which you can't really fake. I mean,
Well, I think you're right. I think it was like a poorly planned stunt.
and he's wearing that mask, which
Yeah.
you probably can't see or breathe that well.
I think it's
through,
tough.
and-
I don't know if you noticed it in the last episode too. There's a period of time where Roddy has to jump out of a window in the full ape suit, and when he jumps and lands on the ground, you can clearly see the ape's feet the grip doesn't stick, and he like nearly wipes out. Like he slips so hard and like barely rights himself. I was like, oh man, I'm sure he did not want to do that stunt again, so they just had to keep this one. But yeah, it does seem like that suit's probably not the best for doing stunts in.
But we do in this episode at the very beginning also learn they have a compass. Where do they get that compass from?
Spaceship.
He built it.
Oh, he built the compass. Did he?
Yeah, because this is what this is what they've been talking about. Is he hurts himself when he falls down, and they're trying to stay ahead of the people who are after them, and they're not mad at Galen when he hurts himself, but they're pretty upset that he's slow. They say he's no Iron Man, who is also apparently some sort of Michigan football player. I couldn't figure out who they were
really?
referencing.
Oh, I didn't even catch that.
Yeah, they call him. They're like, he's no Iron Man, Michigan's famous running back, and I'm like, what? And I tried to Google all those keywords. I could not find an answer to that question. Anyway, the one advantage they have, even after Galen's hurt, for them to get away from Urko's men, is it's overcast at night. The clouds are out, and the apes can't navigate without the stars. So the ape guards just keep riding their horses in circles because without stars, all they can do is ride in a circle. Yeah. But Verdun has built himself a compass, to which Galen's just like, "Is this witchcraft?" And he's like, "More like handicraft."
Oh,
that was the joke. That was the joke they had.
I did find out that there is a West Michigan Iron Men, and they're a professional indoor football team. Could that be it?
And maybe that's what the reference is.
That's weird if that's the reference.
I thought it would have been like some 70s version, like an Iron Man competition, like a strongman thing, and maybe there's like a lot of those.
I don't know, but they referenced them. They said specifically a Michigan running back, and I'm like, what? I don't know. I don't know sports. I don't know 70s sports.
I mean, someone listening to this podcast probably knows exactly what this is, and
they're just furious
so
right
now.
now. Don't worry, they'll tweet us if they are.
It's the current Iron Man.
Nobody listening to this show watched sports.
In the 1970s, maybe they did.
Maybe there's some crossover.
This is terrible. There's someone right now, like in an old folks' home, and they really love sports, but someone has somehow left this podcast on, and they can't get up and turn it off, and they're just like, no, I have the answer. But they also hate listening to this podcast. Someone's doing it as torture.
It's Roddy McDowell right now.
It's Roddy. Oh, poor Roddy. He's dead, isn't he?
I think he is dead. Just the image of him still in the ape suit.
Right. Oh, he's still in the ape suit too. No, he'd be in the ape suit, but not the head. But the rest of the suit's still there.
Yeah. Or just the head. In regular
oh, poor guy.
It was after they reshot those movies. They just left him that way. Yeah. All right. Anyway, essentially what happens is Galen's hurt. They need somewhere to hide. They spot a nearby farm, and they basically pull up on there and ask for shelter. So let's quickly talk about this farm. Polar's farm.
First time we've seen some female apes.
Yeah,
And,
is that true?
And they are very attractive.
The hottest of female apes. But
farmer's daughter ape?
Oh, yeah.
Oh.
In the IMDb trivia page for this, it said there are no female apes in the series. And then I got to this episode. I was like, that's someone put incorrect information. Someone watched 3 episodes.
Maybe he was just angry. He's like, those are not females to me.
Yeah. I refuse to believe it. I, Dinky 3, will never believe this. Here's what I found interesting. Is Polar is some sort of peasant and a tenant farmer, some sort of weird underclass in this world. He's not allowed to have horses. He can't afford a human slave. Like, only rich farmers with friends in governments kind of have the ability to like run a profitable farm.
Yeah, they spent a lot of time in this kind of oddly world building, not only the economic structure of these farmers, but their somewhat religious beliefs.
Yeah, there's definitely a bit of religion. Like they're very superstitious a lot. Mm-hmm. For that instance, the oldest son, who's kind of the key antagonist of the plot, his oldest son, Alto, he's waiting to have. They have a cow that's pregnant, and that cow needs to have a calf bull in order for him to leave the farm and get his own tenant farming plot. So basically, to go be a peasant farmer on a different plot, he needs to have his own baby bull. And they've been trying for years, and he hasn't been able to have it. So he has all his hopes riding on this new pregnancy, and it's kind of made him like very bitter and ornery.
Well, and it's also what's really interesting about that was because I made note of the fact that in this episode, and I don't know if it's a new writer for this episode, but in the first 10 minutes, there's 3 references to like spirituality or some sort of like cultural belief, because they mention witchcraft for the compass. And then in that mention about the calf bull, they talk about curses and bad omens. And I was like, whoa, they haven't used any of this language.
No,
in the
you're
first
right.
4
This is the first
episodes.
time.
And then all of a sudden in this episode, like within the first 10 minutes, like boom, boom, boom. So I don't know if that was a writer's choice. They were just like really into that, or they're gonna start building on.
It's a good question. I mean, this would definitely be the first time we've seen apes of this class in an ape society. Like up till now, we've either seen the ruling class, the prefects who run the like human cities, or that's pretty much it. Like we've seen humans,
I guess in the other episodes they were kind of suburban area.
but we didn't see a lot of apes there. We mostly
That's
saw
true.
humans.
That's true.
Like the closest we've seen to the underclass would be these guerrilla soldiers, and they're mostly just there. They're just soldiers. They're just following orders.
Right.
I had read somewhere, like this is loosely based on the films too, but there's like 3 main zones that there's like they've mapped out. It's the ape zone, the rural zone, and the forbidden zone.
That's right. Yeah.
And ape zone is like central ape city, I guess, where like
Right.
Doctors is, and then this would count as rural zone.
Well,
I
they do.
guess?
They do talk about how this area is a rurally zoned area. That's why no one would be riding a horse around here because farmer peasants can't own a horse and humans can't ride a horse.
Right.
So the only people who are on horses are guerrilla patrols.
But this is now the beginning of, as we mentioned just before this, the disc is now not going to be the plot anymore, and the plot now is going to be them trying to find civilized humans that they think might have technology that can get them home. And that's what now is going to be what the series is from this point on.
Okay.
So that's why they've now mentioned there's another zone that no one really goes to. Because that's
Forbidden
gonna, yeah. So it's like maybe over there there'll be humans
Yeah.
because no one knows what's there, and that's I think going to be now.
Oh,
what the show
interesting.
is.
So they're setting up kind of some geography in this episode because they lost that problem.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And oh, by the way, I'm really excited to have a very conversation about the humans eating cows. Let me just throw that out.
Well,
there.
Oh,
let's
God,
talk
yeah.
about this because this is what the son ape, the oldest son ape who wants his baby cow, is so bitter and angry at the humans being there because the curse he's worried about is they think humans curse cows. Like he's just like, you can't have a human around a cow. The cow will get cursed. It's gonna kill the cow. It's gonna kill the baby. It's gonna fuck me. I need this baby bull. And they keep going on, and they're just like, well, it's true because these filthy humans eat cows.
And they didn't just say eat; they said barbecue.
Oh, they say barbecue, but also later on in the episode, they make it sound like humans just devour them whole, like raw. They
now
just
this is my
open
question
their
because
jaw.
they do say barbecue. So my question is this: the humans don't own any cattle; they're just like slaves. And
Right.
So, did a human steal a cow, butcher it, and then barbecue it? Is that what's happened? And they saw this one time, or is this something that's always happening? The humans are always stealing cows and barbecuing, or at one point a human owned a cow and decided, well, that's good eating.
I resolve to believe that based on the system of like the wild humans, there might be more like cavemen style, would just be they'd witness them capturing cattle and like cooking them over a fire.
Real
Like,
barbarians.
yeah, like a barbaric
Right.
sort. So it's like they're not making burger patties and having like a grill and barbecue.
They're not having their
I thought-
friends over
but-
for beers.
Yeah, I thought they watched like people and they were just like watching the game and having a couple burgers.
Yeah, they're just watching like Green Bay Packers or something. Sports
No, they were
reference number 2.
They were watching those Iron Men.
Yeah,
Michigan
exactly.
Iron Man.
Yeah. But so I just imagine that they've witnessed them hunt and like feed it over over a roaring fire, like a campfire.
And one other note, they're shirtless again in this episode. The
Oh,
two guys.
big time.
Nice.
This is a real beefcake episode because essentially what happens is they get there, they ask for shelter. Polar's wife happens to have studied to be a nurse. She wanted to live in the city, but now she lives out in the country. She's going to take care of Galen, get him back on his feet. Their daughter, the farmer's daughter, is really going to flirt it up with Galen a lot.
Yeah.
And they actually they seem
underplayed
like,
that.
Yeah, they didn't commit to it. There's like 2 scenes where she's like, "Hey," and then later she's like, "Sad to see you go." And I was like, "Well, they didn't really develop that at all."
Yeah.
They really like Galen. They left him on the sidelines the whole episode. So I was
Yeah.
like, there's a really funny subplot here about a farmer's daughter, but it's just apes this time. Like you didn't have to go that far. You just reskin it with Galen as the ape, and you probably could get a lot of laughs out of that.
Yeah. And I think you may be right, Kaveh, that maybe maybe Roddy actually got injured in that fall, and they're like, "Quick rewrite. He's actually
Yeah.
injured, so he's out of the show."
Yeah, he's
This episode.
barely in this episode. But yeah, now that they're taking care of him, the agreement is basically the 2 humans are going to spend the days while he recovers, essentially being slaves to the owner, and also revolutionizing the farming industry.
Yeah, we get a long time now of basically what do? They show them how to
Don't plow up hills.
yeah, which is come on.
Apes, you can probably get there
Yeah.
on your own.
Make fences that actually make sense.
What do the apes' fences look like?
I mean, it looked like a couple of like pieces of log glue, like stapled together.
Like they seem to have just jammed sticks into the ground like up and down, like
Yeah.
it would to stop nothing.
And one across maybe.
No, they didn't even do that.
No, there was
They
none
didn't have one
across.
Oh, it was just
Because
like,
Burke like starts setting up an actual like
Right.
farmer's fence, and they're like, whoa, what is this?
Well, can I also add? I thought I wrote myself a note saying that like in the whole battle of apes between man, this is totally them mansplaining farming to them in like the human.
That's it. There's the fence. They build a pulley system so they can get like hay up into the hayloft without just shoveling it up there.
Windmill.
But
A windmill. They build a windmill.
It looked like a really nice windmill
and
too.
that's, when we talked about this earlier, but there's a real push right now of like how much better the humans are, which I thought is not as strong an attitude in this show. But are we going to talk about the one line in this where the guy does his little impersonation?
Oh, that was rough when he's building the fence.
Yeah.
Oh my god. Because the premise is they're gonna be their slaves for a week while he gets better. Like they're just gonna work really hard on the thing, completely shirtless, like as we've mentioned before, very sweaty and glistening. But yeah, the kid's watching him build a fence, and he's just like, the kid's like, yeah, this fence is good. I decided it's a good fence. Can you build more of it? And Burke turns around and he says to himself, "Did you miss this?"
I don't remember. Yeah.
I'm not going to say what it is. He does a he does an impersonation. How do you ever take it?
Oh yeah, I remember. That was really cringeworthy.
It was really cringe. He basically puts on an accent and like pretends he's a slave from the South. It's played to be light, like, isn't it crazy like that you would have a slave, but having an all-American beefcake guy,
it has not aged well.
no.
Yeah, it just seemed like unnecessary too. Like there was no need to have that line. I remember I was like, I had it on in the back. I was like cooking dinner, and at one point I was like, oh, they just why?
That was weird. He's like, because the kid's like, "Where'd you learn to make a fence like this?" He's like, "Abraham Lincoln taught me." And he's like, "Who's Abraham Lincoln?" He's like, "I wish I knew." And then,
Yeah, there was a lot of kind of weak jokes. I mean, this episode, I think that loses a point right there.
just for
that.
Yeah, that was a swing and a miss on. Someone did not predict the future well. That's the note.
Anyway, you get a real they're know-it-alls, and that goes on for a while.
They
to
like
kill
build.
time.
They build a shower so they can shower. There's a whole.
Their first shower too of the series. I
That's
think.
true. They're finally.
I
gonna
made
clean.
note of that. It was like they must smell at this point.
Well, they do say that.
Yeah,
all the apes are like, "You guys stink. You guys have to have a bath before you come in the house." So they build a shower themselves. They also there's even a scene where like the little kid is like they I guess they grow corn at this farm, and they don't even kind of understand the concepts of genetics and planting because Verdun in a kind of sweet scene where he's kind of remembering his own son he's left back in the past and he's kind of nostalgic. Sort of explains to him, don't plant the small little stubby corn things. Don't plant those seeds. Plant the best corn seeds because then your crops will be better. And they kind of explain genetics to them of crop planting.
I wrote a note earlier on. I'm like, how come these astronauts know everything about farming? But then they were like, oh, one of them grew up on a farm. Done, right? Everyone happy now?
Yeah. I mean, it's funny. We've seen this before, like Galactic 1980. There seems to be like a period of time where TV shows, like, you just had an episode where everyone goes to a farm. Like, I just think there's a time where like a guy Verdun's age, the older of the two men. How old do you think he is, by the way?
You know, it's a funny thing because it's a time period where it's hard to tell how old the leading men are, and this goes for a lot of movies too. Like my guess is he looks like he's about 40, but if there's a very good chance he's also like 22 years old. You know?
Well, I can tell you, Burke, the younger one, is 25. Verdun, the older one, 37. He is literally our age.
Yeah, we do not look like that.
No,
I look like that episode with the kid who didn't want to be a gladiator. I looked younger than that guy.
Right.
And also in that episode, just a side note, was they were father and son, and they didn't look more than a couple years apart in age. I thought it was pretty funny.
I think my point, though, is I think because there's a lot of farm episodes in this period of time, I think the idea that a 37-year-old man probably grew up in a rural outskirts because his parents were farmers, because people hadn't like fully migrated internally. I think maybe there's some logic to the idea like that we're just like, how would you know anything about farming? But I think in like 1974, the idea that you grew up on a farm was probably like a 1 in 10 chance or a 1 in 5 chance. Like, yeah, I grew up on a farm.
Anyway, there's a lot of world building along time wasting in this, but I kind of found it boring. Do we not? I'm just saying, like, because we could just keep going on, but like, there's just a scene where like, now we build a fence. Now we build a thing. You're like, okay, God, we get it. Like, there's very little plot in this episode.
It was one too many scenes of them mansplaining.
Yes.
It was like we got the first one and the second one was nice, I guess. Then there's a third one and a fourth one and then maybe a fifth one.
I've got 6. I've got
That's
6
what I mean. It's
individual
like too
scenes.
many.
That's way too many.
But I mean, the core conflict of this is also wanting to turn these fugitives in because he's so bitter. He's worried about his baby cow being born. And like he finds some guerrilla soldiers and he kind of like pulls them aside. He's like, hey, you guys ever give any rewards, like cash rewards for turning in slaves?
He's the worst sneaky person ever.
Yeah.
But what's crazy is the guerrillas are just like, what? Pay you to do your duty? Not a chance. And he's just like, fine. And he walks away.
And that first soldier is not interested to hear him out either. Like there's an opportunity, like they might, it's like, well, hear what he has to say anyway.
That'd be me in the office. Someone comes over like, hey, you got I could way to make things easier. I'm like, yeah, I'm listening. Yeah.
Yeah. It does kind of one of the guerrillas. He's like, what did that guy want? He's like, he was saying something about whether we give rewards for
solving all our
slaves.
problems.
And he's like, well, maybe we should check out his farm later, but we'll get to it later. Like it's really kind of pushed to the side. But kind of finally the episode kind of kicks into some sort of, I guess, plot, or not plot, but like drama, when this cow they've been waiting to give birth the whole episode falls over, and you come to learn that it's having a premature birth and maybe is dying before the cow can be born. So Alto is just like beside himself.
Yeah, he's all like, I gotta ring that bell.
Yeah, we come into the barn, and there's this big blue cowbell, like really big, and he's on his knees just banging on it, just banging this bell.
Was he not annoying you? I was watching. I was like, "You're annoying me. Stop that would be if I was there. I'd be, we get it. Stop ringing the bell."
I think it's a religious thing.
I know, but it's still annoying.
Well, yeah, that was the thing. It started to get really annoying by the time that he was helping. But also, I didn't really get. So you ring the bell when the cow is sick, and then you also ring it while you're helping give.
It wasn't clear.
It was just constantly ringing.
Yeah, I'm not sure if it was a birth bell or he was just like begging maybe you beg the gods when you do this, but the cow seems to be dying. Alto is like furious. He like threatens to kill the humans. He like blames them entirely. But of course, because Verdun, I guess, grew up on a farm, he's seen enough cow births to know that they're going to need to turn the cow in the womb so it can be born. How much did you think we were going to see him put his hand in a cow?
Yeah, I thought we were going to.
I couldn't stop thinking about what are the chances that this is shot in the 70s and they actually took proper care of that animal too. And like, what did they do to the cow to make?
I thought about it because I'm like, that cow looks kind of sick.
Yeah, like did they sedate it or something even more horrifying?
It was funny. You'd see shots of it laying on the ground, and they'd cut to a close up of its head, and the cow would be laying there, and it would just be like eating the grass in front of its face. It'd be like, I was like, this is fine. I'm just gonna eat this grass while I lay here. But basically, Verdun is able to turn the baby in the stomach of the cow. However birthing a cow works, I don't know. And it's great because in the scene where they finally where Alto gives in and lets him try to help, all the apes just stand there staring down at him, dumbstruck. Like every ape is there, mouths agape to whatever Verdun's doing off camera.
I mean, yeah. What else could they do? Someone's already ringing the bell.
I think they were just worried that he was going to start eating him. Classic humans.
Well, I mean, I just assumed what they were seeing was the part where he put his hand in.
Right.
They're like, oh my god, this is horrible.
He's just staring at them the whole time while he's doing it.
Yeah.
But essentially, Verdun's able to have the cow give birth, and the cow gives birth to two bulls, twin bulls. And Alto is very forgiving from this point forward.
What I love though is at that point, they put a little bit of I don't know what it is, Jello or something on the cow to make it look like it was just born. But the guy, what's the kid's name? The
Alto, the angry one.
He goes and hugs the cow, and if you rewatch it, the look on the cow's face is of pure terror because if you think about it, it's just being hugged by a gorilla or whatever it is, and the cow just like, whoa, what is happening?
I did notice he just runs in and grabs the cow, and the cow's like, whoa.
This was not the deal, guys. I lay down and eat this grass.
And we finally kind of get a little tension for our astronauts as well because those ape cops that he reported his sighting to earlier, or whether they'd give a reward. One of them snuck by the farm a little early in the day, and he happened to see a human using a shower.
Yeah.
So they arrive with Urko this time, and they're like, "Hey, do you guys have humans on this farm? This guy saw a human, some sort of crazy water contraption, and it's up to Alto now to save the day.
It's my
make
favorite
up for
scene.
himself. Make up for what he did earlier."
Yeah,
Kaveh, do you want to walk us through what he does?
Well, someone says that they accuse them of seeing a human or having put a human on their farmland, and he says, "Oh, that was just me." And he essentially starts acting like, "Hey, I can put on a little show as a human." He splashes his face with some sort of white.
It was like flour.
Flour, I think. Yeah, he gives himself white face.
Yeah, and he puts on a show, and everyone starts laughing, and he makes the what's his name?
Urko.
Urko's men. They start laughing, and then at one point he starts chasing chickens. He's like, "Yeah, it's me. I got a little look at me. I can imitate a human." And he picks up one of the chickens, and he reveals most of his human forearms in that shot, which I liked. A nice touch.
Yeah.
I was impressed because I watched him run after those chickens, and he
got one right
he
away.
grabs one of them
Yeah, right
mid-run in that suit. I'm like, holy shit, how did you not kill that chicken?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So he basically convinces them that it was
He's
him.
holding it up and it's flapping around. He's like, I'm going to eat this chicken. I'm a human.
It was great. I loved the idea of an ape doing an impersonation of a human.
Yeah.
I thought it was great.
It was very funny. It's like a whole clown act. And then at
Yeah.
the end of it, he's just like, and then I just go wash off my makeup in this thing I built to wash off my makeup. And he uses the shower and like
Yeah.
gets drenched and his makeup comes off.
I couldn't help but think of how much that must actually be
Yeah.
ruining the makeup. And then you cut the shot later, and it's like, well, that's obviously like 4 hours later.
Yeah.
Redone the makeup and put a little bit of water in his hair.
Yeah, but it is hilarious because Urko doesn't like this at all. But his men are laughing.
Love
It's
it.
the best thing they've
They're
ever seen.
laughing their asses off. This man is a genius. I think also we're gonna come back to him later. He's gonna have his own show in Central City. It's gonna be a hilarious.
Buster Keaton.
He's gonna be in Human Face the whole time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was such a weird scene, but so much fun. I was just like, it's been a boring episode, but man, oh man, what a finish!
Yeah, it was a good finish.
And it kind of ends here. Galen gets better. Him and the boys take off into the sunset as they do at the end of every episode. Alto announces he's naming his bull calves Verdun and Burke in their honor.
Names it after them.
And
Isn't it an honor to have someone name a cow after you?
I mean,
it's not an honor.
Oh, that's true.
it's better than being killed by a bunch of crazy apes
I think I'd rather have one of them do an impersonation of me with flour on their face.
forever.
Yeah. Well, I just want to see it.
It's a form of compliment. Parody is a form of compliment.
Yeah, exactly.
And it sort of ends with Polar hanging out with his youngest son, who's been kicking around, who's kind of been the one who's been watching the humans do all their work. And they're standing at their giant windmill, which is pumping their new irrigation system into their fields. And some gorilla rides up. He's like, "Hey, where'd you get this from?" And Polar's like, my son built it. And he's like, all right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's like ape society has been advanced hundreds and hundreds of years, and no one has any questions. Like the ape's just like, it looks weird. Bye.
Yeah. I think they're just going to dominate and just start taking over all the farms because they're so advanced.
I thought we were going to see a little bit of it. Like Polar's farm is now like making so much money. Like it like is just so the scales have been offset so much on this one farm. But they even end they're like, well, we won't know till next year because all the improvements won't really come in till next year. So I guess we'll see what happens. I'm just like, how are you going to leave me not knowing what happens to this family? They're definitely going to get crucified, right? As
Yeah.
witches.
Yeah.
But that kind of wraps up that episode too. So I mean, let's get into some final thoughts, like anything we didn't talk about or any like stuff you want to say about these episodes. But I can start us off with a fun little trivia fact here, Jordan.
Oh, great.
Do you know who directed The Good Seeds?
I'm going to guess Martin Scorsese.
Oh, you're right.
Wouldn't that be something?
It's a director we know. He directed a episode of Beyond Westworld, The Lion.
Which one was the line?
That was the race car episode.
Oh, really? Same director, huh?
Yeah.
So he was just killing it this time.
Just living it. I mean, this is 74.
Right.
The other one's like 80. So he's a long time working, this guy.
What was his name?
Don Wise.
Oh, right.
Classic
okay.
Don Wise.
Yeah, he's a
I
producer
could
on the
see
show,
you
too.
could see his style of the way he shot monkeys
Yeah.
And race cars.
and race cars.
There's a lot of both of these in
Yeah.
both episodes. What about you guys? Any final thoughts on this stuff?
I have a feeling we started pretty high with this. I think we had some pretty good scores, and I still like this show, but I have a feeling that this last episode is going to be more like they're going to be from this point on. I have a feeling that, I mean, we'll get into the scores. I think there was a quality drop from episode 3 to 4, and I have a feeling that's where the quality is going to stay from this part. I don't think we're going to get any more pretty fun episodes. I think this.
You think it's going to become a little more like...
I think it's just going to get stale. I think it's every episode is Urko chases them and they bump into humans and then they prove that they're better than apes and then they move on. I think that's what's going to be.
The thing I'm most excited about, I'm going to continue watching this, is like, because there's a few things I keep noticing throughout these episodes that I wonder if they're like light winks or homages to the films. And one of them I thought about mentioning earlier was like the earthquakes. Is a reference to the second film where like it's called Beneath the Planet of the Apes, and there's a civilization of super powered mutant humans living underneath the earth. And they're the ones that have the nuclear bomb and they praise it like a god. And because they're testing the nuclear bomb, the earthquakes are constantly happening.
Oh.
So when I saw the earthquakes in the third episode, I was like, I wonder if the show's going to lead up to the Forbidden Zone, and then like there's a race of mutant humans. So what I'm excited about future episodes is there could be a potential of them exploring that world, and why not? Like if you're the showrunner of the show, why wouldn't you use
Well,
that?
I think there's clearly a world that they've set up that there's a lot of space to go explore. I think I'm more pessimistic. I don't think there's going to be much exploring. I think it's just going to be more little rural farms one after another. I mean, we'll see.
I guess we'll see. I mean, you're right. There has been a pattern. Like first episode we watched, I think, was really good. Same with the first episode of the series and the first episode of this episode. And then the second episode was like kind of took a bit of a downturn where they kind of picked like, it's a little bit of a generic idea and went with that. But I still think even in this episode, which wasn't the best, still some pretty good writing in it overall.
Yeah, it had some moments.
Yeah.
And they had that hilarious fall with Galen falling off the cliff. That was great. And the guy doing a human face.
Yeah, human face.
They started and ended real strong. All
right. Well, Kaveh, typically when we rate a show on this, we kind of work off the IMDb 10-star system. So 1 to 10 kind of idea. I guess we'll start with you and The Trap. What would you give The Trap?
I give it an 8. Can I do 0.5s?
Of course.
8.5 out of 10.
I would love if you did a 0.5. Wonderful. Jordan, how are you feeling about it?
I think I'm in agreement. I'm going to go a little bit lower at a 7.5, but it is my favorite episode so far. But I still think there's a little room for improvement, so I'd like to see them get a little better. But that was my favorite episode.
Yeah, I'm also going 7.5. I thought they got too quickly to the idea of like you have to work with your enemy, but like the episode as a whole was really, really good, and I think they can do better. So I think 7.5 is the right place for it. But I guess we have some pessimism, a real Pete Burke over here.
That's what I am. Yeah.
All right, Kaveh, you want to give us good seeds? What do you think for good seeds?
It's definitely a step under. I'd say like a 6 out of 10. That's being really kind. 5.6. I'll give it 6. I mean, the human face in the end would give it another point.
Fair enough.
I'm giving it a 5.5. Same. I mean, I think we probably all feel the same. And I'm being. I think it's got a little goodwill, so I'm giving it a higher score than I like, because I did not like this episode.
I think I liked it better than the cage fighting one from the episode before, which I think
no way
gave a 4.5, but not a lot better.
Bane broke his back. That was great.
The cage fighting episode is great,
but
better than this one.
I don't know. I'm a little mixed on it. I think I'm gonna go with a 5. I still don't think it's very good, but I feel like it was a little better than that. But I'm in the minority apparently.
Can I add one fun fact too? Is
absolutely
when they edited these episodes into movies, it was 1 and 3. The first movie was episode 1 and 3, so they skipped 2 entirely. So it's the pilot episode and then The Trap is one film.
So they picked the 2 strong ones.
They picked the 2 strong ones for the first movie, and then the next ones are like the next Forgotten City of the Planet of Apes is 2 and 5. Treachery and Greed is 9 and 11. I mean, so you'll get there.
Wow, they're really all over the place.
And so but they jump episode 4. I noticed. No one wants this one.
The 4 episodes.
Where's episode 4?
They never include these 4 episodes. They don't include 4, 8, 12, and 13 in any of the films.
Oh, interesting.
I'm trying to remember those. Those are gonna be the weak ones.
Those are probably the weak ones, and because you can tell right off the back if the first film is 1 and 3, those are like the 2 strongest of the first.
Yeah.
4,
So what we've seen, they're definitely the strongest episodes.
Yeah. It works as a movie, the fact that they get trapped together and have to work together, like as a feature.
You're right. It definitely, they fit a little better thematically too, I think.
Yeah.
But, I mean, they still would be a little weird. Old Galen.
No, you just add him in. Oh, didn't see you come in. I was just here reminiscing by myself.
He's like sleeping in one scene.
Are you more comfortable if I put a human face on? And they throw a flower in his face.
I hope is that became a trend in the show? Oh,
yeah,
so good.
that'd be great. I want to see just in the background, like they walk by a city and there's someone like doing it on a stage.
In the Japanese remake of Planet of the Apes, there's a Japanese TV series of Planet of the Apes. There's one ape that is disguised into the human camp, and he's full on wearing a plastic human mask, and like an actor plays him, and then in the reveal when they realize it's a monkey, it's an ape, it's like a plastic face mask comes off. And
Sorry, this is a Japanese remake of the TV show.
Saru,
or the movie?
Saru no Gundam. It's
Perfect pronunciation.
Saru might be awful, but yeah, they made a TV series out of the feature film and the novel actually.
Oh, really?
So they got the rights to it, and it has nothing to do with this TV series. And it's like about a family that instead of they're not astronauts, they get cryogenically frozen, Fry from Futurama style.
Yeah, classic.
And they wake up into the Planet of the
I've
Apes.
seen that before.
It's
how many episodes?
24. I've always wanted to watch it.
I'd watch a Japanese Planet of the Apes show.
Yeah, I think so.
Not after this, but soon.
There are ape ninjas in it, and there's a wisecracking robot.
This could be the best show we've ever watched.
Yeah.
Why aren't we watching it?
There's an ape spy masquerading as a human with a mask.
Do they go to a farm?
I don't think it's any farm.
Look, we need to see farming, and we need to see some sort of bureaucratic scene where they're stamping
Oh
documents.
man, yeah. Do they go to like someone's office?
Yeah.
Ape at a desk.
Pretty good. Anyways, yeah, that sounds fun.
All right. Well, I think that about wraps it up for the show. Kaveh, thank you so much for coming in.
Thank you for having me.
It was really good to have someone who kind of knows this world.
Love it.
Typically, everyone comes in pretty blind, so it was kind of interesting to hear like You know the series, you know the continuity. Honestly, I assume this just took place after the last movie. To find out that the last movie was the end of the world, and this means this one probably takes place between movie 3 and 4.
I think this is the Kelvin universe, isn't it? It's just like a separate universe.
Yeah, this is the movie. This is the continuation. If in the first movie Charlton Heston is killed and he never, you know what I mean? Like if you take the first movie and assume that in the end they just all died, then this would make sense as a sequel.
Oh right, so it's the Kelvin universe.
Yeah.
Just post first movie.
Yes.
I'll write it into my fan fiction. I'll make it all make sense. It'll be fine.
It's gonna be a lot of the apes kissing.
I mean, obviously.
Yeah.
Those lady apes. Woo-wee. In the meantime, if you know who the Iron Man is, or you want to talk to us about the Planet of the Apes,
Oh man, can you imagine if someone actually emails us about that?
I would be so happy.
Delete.
You can reach us at continuumdrag@gmail.com. Of course, we'll have some clips from the show. Definitely Galen falling down.
Yeah, it's already. I've already put that aside.
Probably, someone looking at posters in a subway. A lot of human face. It'll all be there. You can follow us on Instagram and Twitter at continuumdrag. And that's about that. That's it. That's it for the episode. Thanks for joining us, listener. And Jordan, I'll see you next week.
Yeah, see you then.
Continuum Drag is recorded in Toronto, Ontario. Theme music by James Ruxsiedler. Produced by Jordan Delic and Luke Black. Special thanks to Aaron Yunes, Adam Wheatner, Jeff Hanley, Jane McRae, and Stephen Packard.